Hello and welcome to another video. In this one I'm going to be responding to some of the comments that a bunch of you made in my previous video called Why Does Matt Walsh Think This Is a Win? I have to say the vast majority of comments were critical of me and my ideas, and that's completely fine. I welcome constructive criticism, but I wanted to make a video to try to respond to some of those comments. A few things before I start. First is that there are too many comments to respond to all of them. So I haven't responded to absolutely all the comments, but I've responded to a large number of them. Also, this video is unscripted, so it might be a little rough around the edges, so my apologies for that. And lastly, I'll talk more about this at the end, but I'm going to put a link to my Discord server. If you want to talk to me, you're more than welcome to join my Discord and just say, hey, I came from Vegan World Order, I'd like to chat with you, and I'll find time to talk with you. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. So the first comment I'm responding to comes from Metal Machinist 232, and he says, let me explain to you Vegan World Order. There is hardware and there is software. Identity is hardware, like sex or age. Beliefs, on the other hand, is software. When a man says they are a trans woman, they're confusing the two. Okay, so I don't think this is true. I don't think that trans women are confused about their biology or their beliefs. I've never met a trans woman confused about, what's between their legs. They see it every day. So I don't think they're confused about whether they have a vagina or a penis or XX chromosomes or whether they produce large or small gametes. I don't think they're confused about their biology. In fact, I think they're hyper aware of their biology. But presumably this guy is saying something like, well, they're using the term woman or trans woman to refer to their beliefs, but traditionally that word is used to just refer to biology. First of all, I'm not sure if that word is used just to refer to biology historically, but let's just grant it for the sake of argument. Okay, so if you read the feminist literature, it's just not true that the concept of woman refers to just beliefs. One quick example, Katherine Jenkins, her concept of gender, her concept of woman, she says that woman should be sort of used to refer to the roles, dispositions, the certain gender norms that one takes to apply to oneself, even though they may not follow through with them. And that has nothing to do with beliefs, or it's not entirely based on beliefs. It has a little bit to do about your mental states and your psychology and stuff, but it's not just about beliefs. So it's me in editing here, and I just wanted to make a quick note. Even if the concept of woman and man isn't tied entirely to one's beliefs, so it's made true you're a woman or a man based upon a certain beliefs that you have, I see no reason to call that an illegitimate concept of woman. I don't think it is tied entirely to one's beliefs, but I do think it's tied at least in part. But even if it isn't tied entirely to one's beliefs, beliefs exist. Beliefs are real. One of the most realist things there are out there. We definitely have beliefs. And so if one's concept is tied to beliefs, then that's perfectly legitimate. I see no reason why that shouldn't be. I don't think it is that way, but I see no reason why that's a problem, even if it is. So I don't think that they're confused about their beliefs, and I don't think they're confused about biology. I just think that they're using words in a different way than maybe historically they've been used, or definitely they're using words in a different way than this guy is using, but that's okay. Words have been used differently throughout human history. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Okay, so he continues. So it just doesn't make sense to rational people. For mammals, it's impossible to change your hardware. This is actually interesting. I'm going to include a clip from another video, great video, by the way, from Philosophy Tube. Basically, they talk about how when biologists were first using the term mammals, they were a little bit stumped as to whether the platypus would classify as a mammal or not.
Think about a word like mammals. Mammals have a whole bunch of properties. We have warm blood, we produce milk, we give birth to live offspring, and if an animal has enough of those properties, we say, okay, that's a mammal. But it's not a hard and fast list. The duck-billed platypus lays eggs, but it's definitely a mammal. Who decided that? Is there a platypus umpire? No, sadly. It's the community again, the scientific community. The philosopher Richard Boyd says the whole point of classifying animals is to be able to predict and explain things about them. That's the science game, if you like. And that's why homeostatic property clusters are so useful. Properties in the cluster tend to occur together in nature, either because having one causes you to have the rest, or because there's some underlying mechanism that causes them to occur side by side. So, if you know that an animal has warm blood and it gives birth to live offspring, you can predict X, Y, and Z about it because the properties tend to occur together. When European scientists first encountered the platypus, they were confused. Some people thought they were faking, others thought they belonged in a category all their own, until they realized they had so many of the other properties in the mammal cluster that if you want to win the science game, you've got to classify them as mammals.
Okay, so let me put it this way. Can you provide a simple example of a person who has transitioned? Any person anywhere in the world. I'm not going to accept trans when there is no evidence that it exists. So again, when he's talking about transgender, like transitioning, presumably he's talking about someone who's gone from, a male biology to a female biology or vice versa, and where biology is cashed out in chromosomes or gametes and stuff. And yeah, sure, no person, as far as I'm aware, has changed their chromosomes or changed what gametes they produce. But of course, when transgender people say I'm a woman, they're not referring to their chromosomes or their gametes. So it sort of doesn't apply what he's asking. He's putting a restriction that sort of doesn't need to be in place. Okay, so I respond to him, and then he responds back to me. First, I'm not interested in joining your server. I don't think many people do, so thanks on that one. So he's not joining my server, that's sad. You should respond to my comment rather than gaslight me. I don't think I'm gaslighting him. Okay. I tried watching that video and the host referred to biological reality as metaphysics. It isn't, it's literal truth. Try doing an internet search, is biology metaphysics? The answer is no. So I did actually Google, is biology metaphysics? And yeah, sure enough, the answer is no. But it also gives you information about the metaphysics of biology. There's, whole fields and research and books written about the metaphysics of biology. Metaphysics deals with the nature of existence and things like that. And there's a large overlap in, metaphysical research and biological research. So yeah, when you go to a biology lecture at uni and you go to a metaphysics lecture at uni, they're going to be very different. But there is a field of study called the metaphysics of biology. First of all, I don't think, and also, sorry, I should say that I don't think Philosophy Tube, that channel, was saying that metaphysics is biology. They weren't saying that at all. And I don't think the person watched the entire video, because I don't think they got up to the mammals part. Anyway, okay, the next comment comes from Wrath Vantageous. You come across as condescending when you say anyone who has even a rudimentary understanding of XYZ. By saying that, you're immediately failing at persuasion. Anyone who remotely disagrees with you, i.e. the people you theoretically care the most about convincing, will now tune out completely because you have confirmed that you think very little of them and their intelligence. Why should they give you the time of day? While I disagree with your take, I at least would like to avoid being presumptuous. I can see where you might be motivated by sympathy for other people's self-expression. This is much nicer than saying anyone with even a rudimentary understanding of biology would see that X, Y, Z. This is actually fair enough. Maybe I shouldn't have said even someone with a rudimentary understanding of X, Y, Z would see that, they're wrong or something like this. Maybe that is a little bit presumptuous. Maybe there are some people who do understand biology, who do understand philosophy of language, who, think differently to me. So maybe that was a bit presumptuous. So, credit where credit's due, fair enough. But then he goes on to say a little bit further down, Matt anchors his definition in biology, which is concrete and cannot be refuted. And the intersex point has already been addressed ad nauseum. I don't think the intersex point has been addressed very well, though. You anchor your definition in philosophy, theory of language, etc. These are abstract, inconclusive, and ultimately useless once you get to the point of enacting real-world policy. Okay, so a few things here. First is that I'm just about to do a video basically explaining how it's not so easy to give a hard and fast, simple definition of gender or woman based purely on biology. So look, stay tuned for that. Secondly, I do agree that philosophy of language, gender studies, they're a little bit more subtle, and they might not have, as bigger impact as like scientific discoveries or something like that. However, I do think they are important, and I do think that they impact or should impact real world policies. Whether they do or not, that's that's a question that someone else will have to answer. But I think they do, and I think that even if they don't, they should. Okay, so this comment says, a woman is any human with XX chromosomes. Okay, so I'm literally, again, just about to do a video based on how it's not so simple to give a hard and fast definition of woman based purely on biology. But again, there are many women, classified women, pass as women. Everyone takes them to be women, but they don't have XX chromosomes. They might have XXY or XXX or something like that. So yeah, I think it's just false that a woman is any human with an XX chromosome. I also should say that even if they're just defining a woman as XX chromosome, people who are trans-inclusive, they define the term woman differently. So just saying that, well, my definition is different isn't negating the importance and or legitimacy of how they're using the term. So I respond to him by basically saying that 1 in every 1,606 humans have neither XX or XY chromosomes, yet many of those are categorized as male or female, and then I give him my source. A response to that is those 1 in 1,606 humans are what's known as an exception that proves the rule. Dogs have 4 legs, but 1 in XXX number of dogs has a missing leg. It still is a dog. That kind of just proves my point. My point is that if a dog can have less than 4 legs or more than 4 legs, then having 4 legs isn't a necessary condition for being a dog. If I can say that, 1 in 1,606 women don't have XX chromosomes, that just means that having XX chromosomes isn't necessary to be a woman. Again, similar comment, there are exceptions to every rule. Exceptions don't negate the rule. Yeah, same response. There are some comments like Matt Walsh did just fine, you lose, full-blown intellectual dishonesty from beginning to the end of the video. There's not really much content to respond to there, but I did give them a link to my Discord server so they can talk to me. This is another comment that the sentiment I think was shared in the comment section. The fact that you even value gender studies as a discipline disqualifies you from having anything worthwhile to contribute to a discussion about our actual reality. So I do think philosophy is, again, a little bit more subtle, but I do think philosophy and gender studies are important. And I think that what it does, it helps clear up concepts and ideas, and you can sort of see the landscape better. Philosophy of language, I think, is very helpful in this. I very much admire Wittgenstein, and Wittgenstein thought that, philosophy was a great tool for clearing up the room. It's not going to, bring something into the room that wasn't already there, but philosophy is really good at helping clear the room so you can see the landscape better. This person says, Scarlet Fox YT says, I took a shit in the garden, behold, I'm a dog. So I think the idea is there that if what a woman means is just, putting on a dress or wearing lipstick or raising your voice or something, then you can just do what a dog does and then we classify it as a dog. But again, I think the term woman is a lot deeper than just fulfilling certain roles, norms, and dispositions. I do think that is definitely part of being a woman. But I think, again, if you read someone like Katherine Jenkins, to being a woman is runs a lot deeper than that. They have sort of societal norms that apply to them, even if they don't fulfill them. They see that those gender norms are relevant to them. That's, I think, what's important. And there are other concepts of gender and women in the literature. It's not just about fulfilling certain roles. So this next comment comes from Dead Golfer 6345. He says, because the answers that people give turn people off. Presumably he's saying that Matt Walsh wins because the answers that people give turn him off. A woman is an adult human female. The people who he asks this question rarely, if ever, say that, and hence lower their credibility and the credibility of the trans movement in general. I don't think that's true. I think the guy in my previous video who answered Matt Walsh gave a perfectly acceptable answer. I don't think he lowered his credibility at all. He may have lowered his credibility in the room, but in the room it was almost all Matt Walsh supporters. So I don't think that's true. The more times he asks it, the more the public hears nonsense. Again, I do think that a lot of people who have tried to answer what is a woman have done pretty poor responses. But I think the reason is they may not be just educated in philosophy or philosophy of language or gender studies. Then they might just be a layperson, maybe in their first year or second year of college, and they just haven't looked into the topic enough. But I do agree that people have, for want of a better term, given nonsense in response to Matt Walsh asking what a woman is. So I do think that that's true. Matt Walsh thinks this is a win because, from his perspective, from a perspective of evaluating people from the trans movement side to his side, it is a win. Every time. It puts people in a tough spot. When asked this question, you have three options. Give the real answer, which is not preferred by the trans movement, an adult human female. Pretend not to know. Think Ketanji Brown Jackson, which makes you look silly. Or three, give a trans-friendly made-up answer, which makes you look silly. Again, I don't think those are the three options. I think the answer that the guy in the previous video gave was perfectly fine. And I don't think that made him look silly. All right, so the next comment says, comes from Simon Brown 1486. The definition of a word cannot be circular. That's just false. I mean, what is a global? A global is a global. Or what is a woman? A woman is someone who identifies as a woman. Right? That's a circular definition. Why? Well, because what are you identifying as? I identify as someone who identifies as a woman. But that's not actually illuminating what a woman is. So that's a circular definition. So definitions definitely can be circular. If you can't define your terms, then you lose the debate. Perhaps that's confusing for a vegan. I don't think that's true. So there are some terms like semantic primitives you literally can't define, like positions, like before or after. You can't define those terms without resorting just to synonyms because they're semantic primitives. They're primitive notions. You have to already have a concept in mind when you sort of use them. Also, there are, like I mentioned before, cluster concepts. There are family resemblance concepts. These are going to be really difficult to define, like a game or like chair or table. They're going to be difficult to define because they're cluster concepts or maybe family resemblance concepts. But they're still coherent concepts. I don't think you'd lose just by saying that you can't define a term, especially when that term is a cluster concept or a family resemblance concept. The only simple answer to what a man or woman is comes from biology. Any other answer people give is just circular reasoning. That's not true at all. That's just false. You can definitely give a coherent answer. Like I said, Katherine Jenkins gives a coherent response as to what a woman is. The guy in the previous video gave a coherent response, and they didn't refer to just biology. And again, I'm going to make a video that basically explains or goes into why I think it's difficult to give a simple definition of woman based just on biology, or man for that matter. But thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Like I said, if you do want to talk to me, I'd be more than open to having a conversation. The link to my Discord server will be in the description. So please, if you want to talk with me, just come in and we can chat. Okay. So thank you.